Alright guys, today's going to be part 2 of my memory guide, and I will be talking about which memory do you actually want to pick out of your legendary memory selection box once you obtain it tomorrow, or maybe the day after, depending on how fast you're able to complete all those missions. Now basically in this rookie mission, if you are actually able to get up to 55 missions, you'll be able to have access to this legendary memory selection box, and as you can see, there are a bunch of different SSR memory that you can choose from. Now in yesterday's video, in case you guys didn't see already, then do check it out. I posted a tier list for all of the memories by their position. However, if we're actually talking about which one do you actually want to select out of the selection box, it's going to be a bit more than just a tier list itself, because you also have to bear in mind, first of all, what position do you really want to have a memory right now, and also you have to also bear in mind, what are the alternatives. For example, are there any SR group, a good SR memory that you can use instead, or maybe trying to make it more future proof, because a lot of time you would actually be wanting to go for those UR memory. So knowing which UR memories may be good in the future can also help you guys to fill in the gap right now by picking one memory which is less likely to be power cracked by future memories. Okay, so that is basically what's going to be today's main topic. Now before going into all of this, I do want to talk about some of the SR memory as well. Now if you actually go into gallery and if you actually click on memory, for all of the position, there's going to be one SR memory which is at the very end, which is currently not actually obtainable. If you go to the banner recruitment and check the pool info, you would then realize, for example, this practice version for Iwazumi is not actually listed in there. And likewise for the last one for the mid blocker, last one for the setter, this Kenma one, last one for liberal, last one for opposite hitter. Okay, all 5 of those memories are currently not obtainable in the game. Now, on the Chinese version of this game, on the Chinese server, or the Taiwanese server, let's be exact, on the Taiwanese server of this game, you are actually able to obtain them through kind of like a semi-regular event, in the sense that it's almost permanent because it keeps on coming back and forth. And one of the rewards that you're able to obtain from that event is a selection choice where you can pick one of those 5 SR memories. So in some sense, they're almost like a special case. And some of those memories are going to be extremely good as well, as I did talk about in my yesterday's tier list. So once again, do check that out. This one for Wind Spiker is very good. This one for opposite hitter is very good as well. And then this one for the liberal is also going to be very good. Those 3 are all top tier memories in my opinion, even though they only SR. So you do also have to bear that in mind when you're trying to decide which SSR memory you want to take out of your selection box. And even though right now, I don't actually know when those 5 memories will actually become accessible, but considering the fact they're already in the gallery, I'm hoping it won't be much time longer, and hopefully we should actually have access to that, and I will be taking that into consideration. But let's get on to the actual main topic of today, which is which memory do you actually want to pick out of the selection box. Now, even there are loads of different SSR memories here, to be honest, there are only going to be 5 viable choices that you have to make here. And the reason is this basically covers 4 different positions, so with the exception of liberal, it has actually had loads of different memories for each of the position, and there's kind of like one clear winner, or maybe in the case of mid blocker, there are 2 potential choices that you can make there, and therefore that kind of boils down to just 5 simple choices of memory that you can potentially take from here. Okay, now as for the reason why I'm going to list the following memory as the best one for their position, do check out my tier list video that I posted yesterday, where I made all of those comparisons and also my explanations there. So for opposite hitter, it's going to be Kentaro. That's going to be the best choice for opposite hitter. For Wind Spiker, it's going to be this one for Tanaka. For setter, this is going to be the only setter memory you have in this box, so that's the only choice here. It's still a good memory nonetheless. And then for the mid blocker, it's going to be either for Suki or for Aeon. Now, I did say in my tier list video yesterday that Aeon is probably slightly better than the one with Suki's image on, purely because it's been more universally used and can kind of go on all of the mid blockers out there. However, we do have to bear in mind that we all got a free copy of Suki on day 7, and for Suki himself, his own memory is obviously the best one for himself. And that's kind of why I'm still going to list Suki out, because if Suki is literally your only SSR mid blocker, then obviously this one is going to be a better choice than this Aeon one. Okay, now so I already listed out those 5 different choices you can make. Well, so which one do you actually want to pick for? So let's start off with just going through position by position, and I'll talk about not just kind of what are the memories which are currently available for this position, but I'll try to talk about future-proof wise, what are the other potential choices you can make in the future, so you can decide whether to take this memory for the time being. So for the opposite hitter, this is probably, in my opinion, the best SSR opposite hitter memory, in my opinion. Now, there are actually going to be two other UR memories, which are obviously going to be better because they are just have a higher raw stat and better ability than this opposite hitter one. And the two UR opposite hitter memory is going to be the one for Ushijima and also the one for Osamu Miya. Now, the one for Osamu Miya is basically only for quick spikes, and he is literally the only quick spiker opposite hitter in the game as well. So that one is almost like his own exclusive memory, so you don't really need to consider about that unless you are deciding to pull for Osamu Miya in the future. And then the one for Ushijima is a very good opposite hitter memory, and it can go on pretty much all of the characters out there. So that's basically the competition of this Kentaro memory is going to face. Now, the decision that you have to make is obviously going to be pretty simple. If you are planning to summon for either Ushijima or Osamu Miya, then you should just skip Kentaro's memory altogether, because you should just be pulling out their corresponding UR memory instead. Now, if your decision is actually not to go for either of those two characters, but bearing in mind those are the only two UR with higher rarity opposite hitter in the game, you do have to, if you're actually skipping both of them, that basically means that your opposite hitter is going to be at best for an SSR. But if you're okay with that decision, then yes, this is probably going to be the memory that you want to pick out, because this is actually going to be, like I said, the best SSR memory for opposite hitters, okay? So that's basically the choice you have to make in terms of opposite hitter. Now, let's talk about the Wind Spiker choice. So there are actually going to be quite a few different UR Wind Spiker coming in the future, and all of the memories that come with them are, one, all universally good, and two, they are transferable on loads of different other characters. So they're not really like bespoken for whoever the UR character is. They can be put on other SSR Wind Spikers and so on. So as a result, the value of a Wind Spiker memory, in my opinion, already immediately goes down. And on top of that, bear in mind, I did talk about just earlier on, out of the 5 SR memories that we don't currently have access to, but eventually we should hopefully have access to very soon on global. Out of those 5, the one with Iwazuyumi practice version on, that memory, that SR memory, is able to actually increase crit rate, which is then able to not basically boost your own offensive capability, but also act as a trigger point for lots of different skill activation, because lots of skills in this game actually can only be activated when you land a critical hit, etc. So that SR memory, even though you have lower raw stats, it's actually going to be one of the most commonly used Wind Spiker memory, especially if your Wind Spiker is not actually going to be your main hitter. For example, your main hitter may actually be Ushijima, who's in the opposite hitter role, and if that's the case, then your Wind Spiker doesn't need to go all out offensive, and in those cases, those SR memory, which can actually increase your crit rate rather than pure offensive spiking power, actually tend to be a better choice. So with the consideration both in the future, there will be better UR memories for Wind Spiker, and also in the time being, hopefully we should surely have access to a very, very good SR memory as well. Personally, Wind Spiker is probably going to be the one position I don't recommend you guys go after right now in terms of SSR memory. Now let's talk about the memories for the setter, which right now in this selection box we only have one, but it's definitely a very, very good one, because it's very easy to activate its effect. All you have to do is the blocker doesn't have to do a bad block, which is quite common, and then you'll be able to trigger its effect. So it's definitely very, very good and can be used on lots of different setters. Now, if we actually talk about the future memories we'll be getting setter, there's one thing you have to bear in mind, which is that we're actually going to get loads of different UR or SP rarity setters in the future. And the main reason for this is because the setters in this game kind of then further split into 4 different categories, right? So you get the power spy, you get the quick spy, you get the blocks, you get the receives. So as a result, we're going to get loads of different setters of UR with higher rarity. And all of them pretty much is going to come up with a UR memory, which is going to suit them very, very well. So if your decision is going to be putting for any one of those UR setters, which very likely you will be, because there's so many different good choices in the future, then vast majority of the time you will just end up picking up their UR memory over this one. So that will kind of make this being power crap very, very soon. However, there's also another counterpoint that you could be making instead, which is that because there are so many UR or SP setters coming in the future, and that because of them all being different block different specialities such as block or receive or power spike or quick spike, etc. You may actually be short on resources to pull on all of those characters and also all of their memories at the same time. And then in which case, if you actually want to pick one memory which can go on all of them, then this one all of a sudden become a very good choice, because like I said, a lot of those UR memory for those setters are kind of almost bespoke in design for their corresponding setter. So if you're actually going to end up, let's say, pull out 4 different UR or SP setter, one for each of the speciality, and you don't actually want to go after 4 different memory and then level them all up, then all of a sudden this becomes a good choice, because this can become a budget choice of a very solid, universally good setter memory that you can equip on all 4 of those UR or SP higher rarity setters instead. So that is potentially one choice you have to consider as well. Lastly, let's talk about the mid blocker position, which is personally probably going to be the position I recommend you guys to pick the selector for. And the reason for this is that even though we'll be getting some UR or SP higher rarity memories in the future, the ones that currently are for UR characters tend to be somewhat bespoke for the characters themselves. So for example, the UR Crow memory, which hopefully we should be seeing very soon, because UR Crow should be the next banner. That memory requires a character to be able to have quick spike buff, which is very easy for UR Crow to get himself, but very hard for another mid blocker to do. You kind of need to do some weird combo with maybe like the SR version Kageyama, etc. So it's gonna be, well, I won't say it's kind of exclusive to the UR characters themselves, but it's gonna be a lot harder for you to enjoy the full benefit unless you are playing the corresponding character that memory is specifically launched for. So that's kind of why a lot of the UR memory in the future are not going to be so transferable, and then in comparison, the value of a good SSR memory is obviously going to shine a bit more. Now, you may also then be wondering, what if my decision is actually to pull for one of those UR mid blocker, and obviously their memory is the best one for themselves, and I should just be pulling for them instead? Yes, that would be correct. However, mid blocker is possibly the one position I tend to find myself use the least as well, and I just see the least amount of incremental value of putting for a UR character of the mid blocker position. And the reason I kind of explained in a lot of my earlier video is that vast majority of the time for your back row, you will be setting up your liberal to sub out any of your mid blockers, because vast majority of mid blockers in this game are not very good receivers and you can't block from the back. So if you're actually then subbing out your mid blocker whenever they're in the back, that basically means you are pretty much only in need of one mid blocker in this game. And since everyone already got Suki for free on day 7, everyone already have a very good mid blocker, and that makes the value of getting another very good UR mid blocker slightly lower than, let's say, the value of getting another UR in a totally different position. So that's kind of why I personally don't normally prioritize summoning for a UR mid blocker over other positions. And then if you then also add in the fact that a lot of the memories for those UR characters are kind of bespoke for those UR characters themselves, that's kind of why I am probably going to recommend for you guys to either pick the Suki memory or the Aeon memory for the selector choice here. Now, out of the two, which one do you actually want to pick yourself? Like I said, if everyone's going to get Suki, so if your Suki is actually going to be the one equipping the memory that you want, then obviously get this memory for himself. However, if, let's say, Suki is more of your second mid blocker, and eventually you actually plan to put another mid blocker to replace him, or you just kind of want a memory which is a bit more transferable and you can actually put on loads of different characters rather than just restrict it to Suki himself, then I'll probably say yes, you can go for this Aeon one instead, because it's just a bit more universally applicable to pretty much all of the mid blockers out there.